there triathletes, welcome back to another session with Triathlon Tessa, where today I'll be explaining some of the triathlon jargon that you guys might hear. So please bear with me as it's raining outside, you might hear some thunder in the background. And then I want to introduce to you guys Nicolas, my 10-year-old Dutch Hunt. You'll see or hear him in some of the videos as he's very curious and he always wants to be part of everything that I do. So let's jump in and start with those triathlon jargon.
To accomplish something extraordinary, one must have an extraordinary dream. A goal so high, a journey so demanding, that its achievement to most seems impossible.
Yeah, you can be the greatest, you can be the best, you can be the King Kong banging on your chest.
Ironman inspires us to reimagine our limits, to set our sights higher, to go farther than we ever have before.
You can never gonna know if you never even try. Do it for your country, do it for your name. 'Cause there's gonna be a day when you say
Ironman is a statement of excellence, passion, commitment. It is a test of physical toughness and mental strength. Ironman is about persevering, enduring, and being a part of something larger than ourselves. It shows the heights that can be achieved when we push beyond our boundaries and go the distance to earn the title Ironman.
First one will be when swimming, we'll refer to as stroke rate. Now, stroke rate is measured in SPM. You can find that on your sports watch while swimming as well. Stroke rate refers to how many strokes you take within 1 minute. So this will count as one stroke and this will count as another stroke. So stroke rate refers to as how many strokes you are swimming per minute. If you have a stroke rate of 40, it would be very slow. And if you have a stroke rate of 80, it would be very high. Usually for triathletes, we want a stroke rate of somewhere between 60 and 80 SPM. The next up, let's look at cycling. The first one I want to focus on with cycling would be power. Now, power is usually measured with a power meter that you have to buy extra to put on your bike. And usually it's measured in watts. Now, watts refers to as how hard you are working for a specific effort. You can also find watts while running. You also need a power meter to measure that, and it will also tell you what effort you are putting out for a certain session. Then, the higher your watts, the faster or stronger cyclist you would be. The lower your watts, the less effort you would be putting in. And then you would also hear people refer to as watts per kilogram. That's just how many watts per kilogram they maintain as a rider. So say for instance, you are maintaining 150 watts and you have a 75 kilogram rider, then your watts per kilogram would be 2. You'll take the 150 and divide it by 2. Say for instance, you have another rider also maintaining 150 watts, but he only weighs 50 kilograms, then his watts per kilogram would then be 3. 150 divided by 3. Now the higher your watts per kilogram, the stronger a cyclist you are. So you'll see that your weight would also influence your watt per kilogram. Then the next one I want to talk about would be cadence. Now cadence would be referring to the stroke rate or how fast or the revolutions that you are doing on your bicycle. Now for cycling, you'll need a cadence sensor to measure that, and that will tell you how fast your legs are turning on the bicycle. So when you look at cadence, the lower your cadence, the harder you would be working. Usually people would refer to as grinding. So if your cadence is somewhere between 50 and 70, you'll be grinding out in a very hard gear. But if your cadence are very high, you're usually in a very easy gear and it would be easier for you to maintain that cadence. And usually it would be somewhere around about 80 to 100. And that's also very efficient if you do a long distance for your legs to still be fresh when you get onto the run. Now you can also get cadence while running. That's the same thing. How many strides do you give in 1 minute? It's not necessarily the faster your cadence, the faster you're running, but most of the time your cadence would be higher if you are a faster runner. Next up would be kilometers per hour. That will just tell you how many kilometers you are traveling within 1 hour. You can also use your sports watch to tell you that, or your bicycle computer would also be able to tell you how far you are going within 1 kilometer. Then next up, we would be talking about a TT bike. Now that would refer to a triathlon specific bike. The bike setup on a triathlon bike would be different from those on a road bike, as you'll be more cramped up in a TT bike as you're in a different position on the bike. Next up, I want to speak about aero, and now I'm not referring to the aero chocolate. I'm referring here to your position on the bicycle to be as small as possible in the wind. So aero would be as tucked in as possible, so you're as small as possible when riding in the wind. And for that, you would need some aero bars or TT bars. Some of them might be clip-on, and some of them might be integrated into the stem at the bottom. The next one would be TT position. That's the position on your bike to make you as aero as possible. So once again, it would look something like this. And just make sure that you're very comfortable in this position, because you can be very aero, but if you can't hold that for very long, it won't help you being aero. So find the space where you're as aero as possible, but also can maintain that position for as long as possible. Then the last one that we're going to look at while cycling would be clipless versus clipped-in pedals. The difference between the two is clipless is you'd be cycling with your normal running shoes, and clipped in would mean that you have separate pedals and a separate shoe that can click into each other so that your feet are stuck onto your cycling crank arms. Then next up, when you look at running, I've already spoken about your power and your cadence, so I won't look at that again. The next one would be stride length. Now your stride length refers to how far you move with each stride. So for average males, it's around about 0.78 meters, and for the average female, it's around about 0.7 meters. So we want to travel as far as possible with each stroke. But the last two that we'll be looking at with running would be minutes per kilometer. Minutes per kilometer refers to how long it would take you in minutes to complete 1 kilometer. The lower the number, the faster you'll be going. Once again, you can also find that on your sports watch. It will tell you how fast you are running. And then the last one in running would be elastic laces. Now elastic laces you can put onto your running shoes, and that might save you up to a minute in transition time. So how does elastic laces look? Over here you'll see I've replaced my normal laces with elastic laces. Elastic laces are very flexible, so you'll see they'll expand and contract as you pull on them. So once you've put them onto your shoes and figure out what fit would be best for you, you can use them in transition or while training. So it will be much easier for you to put in your feet in transition. The only thing you need to do is pull open, put your feet in, and off you go. You don't need to tighten up your laces, or to make sure that your laces are tightened up during a race as well, because they can't go loose. Then next up, I look at some general terms that we might find in triathlon. The first one would be pros versus age groupers. Now pros are those people that do triathlon for work, it's the everyday work, and they usually get paid to do triathlon. Age groupers refers to the specific group of people within a certain age category, and usually it's divided between men and women, and then further subdivided into age. Usually it's about 5 years between the different ages, and they'll start off at 18 years. So you'll find, for instance, a woman, age group 18 to 24, 25 to 29, 30 to 34, 35 to 39, and you get the idea. The same for men, and usually this is used to determine how strong of an athlete you are within your specific age category. And for me that want to qualify for Kona, I need to be the first or the second person in my age category to get a slot to go to Kona one day. So that's usually the ultimate that you want to reach. You want to go to Kona, and that means that you have to be the best in your age category. Then the next one, we're referring to pain caves. Pain caves would be that place that you use to do your indoor training on. So it can either be your bedroom, your living room, your garage. You might have a separate room for that, or a separate building where you do your training in, but that would be referred to as your pain cave, and that's the place where you do most of your indoor training in, and also where you work very hard and sweat a lot. The next one I want to explain would be HR. Now HR refers to heart rate. You can either wear a heart rate strap to measure that, or a wrist-based watch or an Aura ring to measure your heart rate. Next up would be HRV, or heart rate variability, and you can measure that with a specific program that you download. Your heart rate variability usually measures your performance, your recovery, your sleep, and your overall fitness. For people wanting to improve, I'd say HRV would be a very good parameter to use when planning your training as well as your rest periods. Then next up would be training zones. Now training zones can either be measured for power or for HR. Let's first look at power. You'll get 7 different power zones. First power zone would be your lowest, and 7 would be your highest power zone, which you can only maintain for a couple of seconds. I'll speak about that in more detail in one of our next videos. Then HR zones, there are 5 of them. One which would be the lowest one, that would be your easy running, and then number 5 would be your hard running that you can only sustain for a couple of seconds, but I'll also speak about that more in one of our next videos. Next up, let's look at the difference between aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobicers usually perform at a lower heart rate, or also at the level that you can maintain for a longer period of time. Usually this is used to build your base fitness as well as for your endurance sessions that you'll be doing later on. Then anaerobic are usually referred to as without oxygen. That means that your muscles cannot produce enough oxygen for the energy expenditure to come. And usually you can only maintain this for a small amount of time because your body cannot produce enough oxygen within this period. It's usually used for harder efforts, and also most of the fitness improvements will happen over here as well. Next up will be FTP, or functional threshold power. That's the amount of power that you can maintain for 1 hour of cycling. So FTP is usually used to divide your training power zones in. So once you've established your FTP with an FTP test, which I'll also speak about a bit later, you can use that FTP number to determine your power zone 1 throughout to 7. Also, the higher your FTP, the stronger cyclist you will be. FTP would also help you establish what your capabilities are as a cyclist. So it's a very important number, and it will also differ from person to person. Next up would be VO2 max. Your VO2 max is usually measured in mil, and that is an indication of the maximum uptake of oxygen that your body can sustain. This is also different for males and for females. So when you look at males, the average for a 25-year-old male would be somewhere between 42.5 and 46 mils. And then for a woman, the average for a 25-year-old woman would be somewhere around about 33 mils. So once again, the VO2 max is also an indication of your fitness level. The higher your VO2 max, the fitter you'll be. And the lower your VO2 max, the more fitness you have lost over a period. You can also use your watch to measure that, as it will give you an indication of what your current VO2 max. And the last 3 that we'll be looking at, the first one will be a brick workout. And now I'm not referring to doing a workout with a brick. A brick workout only refers to as 2 sessions done back to back. So say for instance you went for a swim session, and directly after that you went for a cycling session. Your cycling session would be called a brick bike session, because that's the second session that you performed after the first one. Likewise, you can also get a brick run. That means you went out for a cycle, and directly after your cycle you went out for a run, and that run would be referred to as a brick run. Now brick workouts are very important because it also helps you transition between the one discipline to the next one. So you'll also see I speak about brick sessions once we get to planning your workout week as well. And then the second last one would be recovery. Now recovery is very important. You can either refer to nutrition recovery, what types of food you intake after a tough session or a training session to recover your muscles, but also recovery can refer to as those periods that you just dial back a bit on your training. So some people might have 2 hard training weeks and then have 1 recovery week, while someone else might have 3 or 4 hard weeks and then have a recovery week after that before starting all over again with the cycle. Then recovery are usually shorter than your normal training load, so you'll either have shorter distances that you cover in the different disciplines, but you would still maintain some of the intensity that you did in your normal training weeks. Recovery weeks are only there to give your body a bit of a rest, but it's also the time where most of the adaptations will happen to make you a stronger triathlete. So it's very important that you incorporate enough recovery within your training planning. Then the last one would be tapering. Now tapering would refer to as those specific amount of time before your races. Now with taper weeks, it's more or less the same as a recovery week. That's where you just dial back a bit on some of the volume and still keep some of the intensity as to give your body enough rest so it will be fresh for when your first race comes up. Now tapering week can last somewhere between 3 days and up to 2 or 2.5 weeks depending on the distance your race is. For a sprint and an Olympic race, I would say about 3 days would be sufficient. 3 to 5 days would be sufficient for your tapering, whereas when you're doing a half Ironman or a full Ironman, it might stretch somewhere between 1 to 2.5 weeks of tapering. And this time we don't want you to lose all your fitness, we just want your body to be fresh at the starting line. So once again, we'll still have some of the volume and still have some of the intensity. So your body still needs that intensity to know how to perform going faster. And that's it for today, triathletes. Thank you for watching this long session where I explained all the different triathlon jargon. Please like and subscribe to this video and hit the notification button so you'll know of the next video coming out. And then you guys can also join my Facebook page called Triathlon Tessa, where I'll be posting some information as well as links to the YouTube videos that's already posted. And then you guys can also go and follow me on Strava under Therese Mitchell. Also go and look for me on Zwift as Therese Mitchell as well. Currently I'm busy setting up the web page. As soon as it's done, I'll let you guys know, and there's also lots of extras that you'll be able to find on the website as well. Instagram would also be up and running soon, and I'll also let you guys know when that's up and running so you guys can follow me on Instagram as well. So keep up the hard work, triathletes, and see you guys soon.